Boom. I think that's too close to me, you know. What, you need to move it farther away. Guys, do me a favor. It's about 15 minutes before the news, and as is my custom, I love to jump on here right before the news. I will be done and dusted before 19 hours because I love that's the way I choose to do it, okay? You may want to do it differently, but I do it in that way. So what I need for you to tell me in this broadcast is that I am loud and clear, but I will do my due diligence. I will double check it on my phone, on my monitor here, so that we're on the same page, so that we're on the same spreadsheet is what it is. Boy, I'll tell you what, okay, let's just check this out. Suss it out, boy. Make sure that we're doing the right thing. I don't want anyone saying to me, mwewa, you haven't done the right thing. Bo Allen, I see you. Stacy B, I see you. Richmond, Virginia, not Virginia, Richmond, I see you. Loud and clear, thank you for that. Are we good? Make sure that we're doing the right. Perfect. Right, I just need to straighten out my lapel, because you know me, I'm all about the aesthetics, mate. Right, if the lapel's not straight, it's just not going to work. Alrighty, guys, do me a favor. If you could go ahead and sling this broadcast to people that you think would be interested in this conversation, and I think it's a conversation worth having, okay? I believe that beyond any reasonable doubt. I believe that we need to sit down and have a bit of a chinwag about this because it is on people's tongues. What I constantly hear is that must you talk about everything? I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, and I will say it again. And it's this, guys, you have no idea what it's like being me out here for you. It is an up and down, pride swallowing siege that I will never fully tell you about, okay? And the Oscar goes to Thank you for this. Being silly. And that's fine to do. By the way, did I tell you, I was over at the, my daughter, our first daughter, she's a medical doctor, you know. And I'm proud to say that. Did you notice how I just threw that in there? So she was over at the house the other day with my grandchildren, and she noticed this, I think she called it a diffuser. It's this right here. This fragrance. See this fragrance from this container here? Lily of the Valley, I must tell you, this smells absolutely beautiful. I mean, it is just so, it's amazing. So my daughter says to me, she says, Dad, where did you get that? I said, well, I bought this from a store at Arcades called Essentia. And I'm enjoying it. I got two for the house. And I got one for the office. So when you walk into my office, mate, oh, you're going to be hit with this beautiful, all-encompassing fragrance that literally just takes you to another level. Literally, okay, I thought I'd share. Do you know the packaging? I don't know about you, but I think the packaging is worth leaving around. It's a conversation piece is what it is. You know, I wouldn't throw this if you forced me. It's one of these things, it sits on my desk, people walk in, the very first thing they ask me, what is that? And then I break into this. And then, you know, once they realize it's the fragrance, we're talking about fragrances, and then we can talk for several hours. I thought I'd share that with you. I had it on my heart to share that with you guys. Guys, let's get into it. We only have about 11 minutes before the news. And I know when I say that, you guys would sacrifice me for the news any day of the week and twice on Sunday. I know this. This is the reason I am literally within the circumference of the 11 minutes before the news. So let's begin. First of all, I want to talk about Bowman. Bowman, as you know, he's in a bit of a pickle. Before I talk about this part of Bowman's trouble, let's go all the way back to the beginning. Do you know what landed Bowman in trouble? Keep in mind, notwithstanding that there are many PF people who amassed wealth, but who are scot-free. Why? Because they didn't open their big gobs, mate. They didn't open their mouths. There are PF people I know that are living in the lap of luxury. They're living a beautiful, carefree life. Why? Because they're in the periphery. They're in the background, mate. They're literally shielding themselves from popularity. They're living a life of anonymity. Ooh, there's a word there, boy. Anonymity. But not Bowman. Bowman, from the very beginning, he always wanted to be seen. He wanted to be heard. He wanted the world to know everything about his wealth and how he got it and how he had it and how he just loved having it. He famously referred to his wife's perfume. Have you seen my wife? Do you know that my wife's perfume can pay lentils for someone? I first heard that and I said, Bowman, we need to talk. It's rentals, it's not lentils. Have you seen my wife? You know, we can go to Dubai and shopping 2 million kwacha. You know, he famously said that. He said, no, we go shopping and all of this stuff. And then he was a guest on Zed Podcast, that Zed Podcast. And Elson and K Plus, the Podfather, they asked Bowman, well, you know, how much does this house cost? And Bowman, realizing, we understand, Bowman has no brakes. He has no sense of self. He has no self-constraint. Zero, zip, nada, nothing. Bowman just breaks straight out of the gates and starts talking about how his house cost $3 million. Here's my question. Where the hell is a civil servant getting $3 million from? You become a person of interest when you start talking about figures that you are not able to justify with a paper trail. It becomes a problem. So here it is, Bowman, you know, I mean, it was his Waterloo. I mean, he created the mess that Bowman is in now. Self-inflicted, self-created, self-induced. Bowman. So anyway, so, you know, Bowman goes to court, you know, and they find him guilty. I think he's going to serve about 4 or 5 years in prison. And while he's in prison, now, it's interesting to note here that he is serving time at the very same prison that I went to for 6 days. You remember my case. I was accused of slashing the tires of a vehicle. I didn't slash the tires. I released the air from the tires. Those two jokers, the bus conductor and the bus driver, decided, you know what? Since mwewa has deflated these tires, let's slash them and make him pay for brand new tires. Long story, I went to jail. I was sentenced to 6 months. I spent 6 days in Mwembeshi. We appealed. The whole thing was overturned. Boom. That's the name of the game. While I was at Mwembeshi, it's a known fact that if you are a person of means, that is to say, if you have a bit of dosh, it's very possible for you to live a semi-luxurious life. I want that to sink in for a moment. Let that sizzle in your spirit. Let that marinate in your soul. Honey, let it bubble in your oblongata. If you are a person of means, meaning, if you are rich and you go to Mwembeshi, it is very possible in that environment to live a semi-luxurious life. I'll never forget, when I first got there, I was placed in a dormitory that had about, I think there were about 22 of us in there. And these are dorms that hold maybe 35 people. So each person had a bed. You know, I was on the bottom. It was a bunk bed arrangement. I was at the bottom, you know. And the guy that slept next to me was the guy from, I always forget where he's from, but this kid was so kind to me. And I learned later why he was kind to me. It's because he didn't have any family. He didn't have anybody that would bring him food. So everything and anything my wife would bring for me, I would share with him. So in exchange, he would always make sure my bed was clean and made. He would always wash my socks and clothes. He would always make sure that there was a bucket in the shower for me to shower. He would always, he did everything. All of this in exchange, because everything I would eat, I would share with him. So that was the arrangement. So while I was there, on the second day of being at Mwembeshi, this guy, whom I do not know, approached me and said, Mr. Mwewa, that dormitory you're living in there, you don't have to stay there. You can come stay with us. I said, who are you? And you know how you look at someone and something in your spirit just tells you no? Okay, so I asked him, I said, because you could say no, you could say yes and end up with a bunch of murderers, So he says to me, he says, you don't have to stay in that door, you can come stay with us. I said, well, who are you? So he tells me his name, and I asked him, I said, what did you do? Oh, it was murder. It was a murder thing, but I didn't do it, he says. So I said, so what's the difference between where I'm staying and where you're staying? He says, oh, we've got tons of privileges. We get to watch TV. We get out early. If you want, you can get out of the dormitory early. You can cook your food as late as you want. And there are only 6 of us in this big room. And I was thinking, 6 of you? He said, yeah. Do you want to see it? I said, sure. So I go over to the dorm, and it's just, there's a big, like a plasma. Do they say plasma now? The big screen? Is that what you call them? Are they called plasmas? Tell me in the comments below. Because, sometimes I forget these things. So I see this huge, big screen mounted, attached to the wall. Those homeboys had DSTV in that big old room. DSTV, I'm thinking these boys are living the lap. They're in the lap of luxury. It's just 6 guys in there. And then they said to me, we got a few young men that they wash our clothes, they cook our food, and all you got to do is just come here, stay with us. So I went to see the warden, okay, the guy in charge, and I mentioned this to him. He immediately said to me, Mr. Mwewa, don't even think of doing that. Those guys are a bunch of scoundrels. You do not want to be in the same dormitory with those scoundrels. They're a bunch of right sad bastards, he said. Now, when the warden tells you that those chaps are a bunch of right sad bastards, you don't do it, mate. You don't go there. So immediately I put a bullet through that. I said, forget it, I'm not going there. So the very next day, the same guy approaches me. He says, hey, listen, did you talk to the warden? I said, I did, and I thought about it, and I thought, no, I don't want to do that. He says, are you sure? I said, I'm positive. Last chance? I said, no, thanks. And that's how that ended. My point is this. Bowman is in trouble because apparently he's been breaking off some guards. In Zambia, we say wadas. They're not wadas. They're wardens. Wadas. What's a wada? No, but in my wadas. What are you talking about? They're wardens. Bowman has been paying wardens in the prison system for him to live a life of luxury. My question is, why is this an issue? Because everybody does it. And why has Bowman made it so easy for him to be identified and sort of picked out as a guy that's doing this, when we know lots of people do it when they're in prison? They live a life of luxury. They do. So why is Bowman in trouble for it? And why did Bowman make it overtly obvious, painfully obvious that he's doing this? He should have just eased on into it, But if you break through the gates and you start announcing that I want to live a life of luxury, and in the process I'm going to pay off some wardens, not wadas. There's no such thing as a wada. Okay? All right. It's almost 2 minutes. So I think Bowman has just shot himself in the foot. He didn't have to, but Bowman being Bowman, he's a magnet for trouble. I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, and I will not stop saying. Bowman is the quintessential magnet for trouble. He simply cannot escape himself. Sorry to say. All right, last thing before I let you go. The Zed farmer. New information has come out that the young man that was the young intruder that broke into Zed farmer's farm, that was ultimately apprehended, roughed up, taken to the police. When he was taken to the police, it was only after he was in custody that he had a brain, what do you call it? His skull was cracked and he ultimately died. The information coming out now is that he died while in custody. That's big. And of course, this is information that there are witnesses that are going to testify to this effect. And it begs the question, it's very clear to see, to all of us, it's very clear that if you have some type of fractured skull, it's not possible for you to stand up and walk. For all intent and purposes, and from what we know, the information we have right now is that this kid was taken and was walking when he was handed over to the police, but while he was in custody, while he was in jail, it was then that he had this fractured, cracked skull. Now that is going to change the trajectory of this case. That says a lot. And of course, we're going to wait and see how the score comes out, but for the information we're hearing is that this kid, when he was handed over to the police, when he was in custody, he was walking. It was only after he was in jail that something horrible happened to him, and ultimately he passed away. We're going to wait and see. Now, the case is going to take off early next year, from what we understand. And I tell you, every nuance, every tiny aspect of this case is going to be placed under a magnifying glass, and we're going to know the truth. When the dust settles and when the dew dries, we're going to know what happened to that kid. But in my opinion, Zed Farmer didn't kill that kid. Not at all. I've said it once and I'll say it again, and I will keep saying it. My opinion is that I don't think she killed that kid. Nay, I know she didn't kill that kid. So we'll wait and see how the score comes out. It's a little after 7. I gotta go. I gotta go home. Okay? I'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night. Bye.